Good day and welcome to another edition of Literature and the Arts. Today we'll be discussing a poem by Niyi Osundare titled Not My Business. A poem titled Not My Business by Niyi Osundare. This poem is important because it's one of the recommended literary works for the 2026 to 2030 WAEC syllabus. So that's why I am engaging this poem in this edition of Literature and the Arts. This poem was published in 1990 in a collection of poems titled The Song of the Season. The Song of the Season. The poem, the collection of work was, when it was published, very timely. The poem dealt with contemporary issues in Nigeria at that time, and that's why he titled it the collection The Song of the Season. And that's why this poem titled Not My Business is one of the songs or one of the poems in the Song of the Season. Why did he title it the collection The Song of the Season? When we read Not My Business, one of the poems in the collection, you will see that the poem was written and published during the time of military rule in Nigeria. Of course, you know that many African countries after colonialism had a fair share of military administration and governance in their progress towards democracy, and Nigeria is one of those countries. For many years, Nigeria was ruled and governed by the military. And you know, as characterized by military system of administration, there was a jettison and a doing away of the constitution, whereby they did what pleased them at any time. And that is what this poem, Not My Business, mirrors. This poem pictures the undemocratic and tyrannic rule of military system in Nigeria at that time. This was the problem Nigeria was contending with. Nigeria was experiencing the height of tyranny and oppression in this military system of. The poem opens with a stanza that says, they picked Akoni up one morning, beat him soft like clay, and stuffed him at the back of a moving jeep. Now, that first stanza of the poem depicts the human rights abuses that characterize military administration. At that time in Nigeria, anyone who says anything wrong to the government in power, they are arrested and then or sometimes kidnapped and whisked away without anyone knowing where they are. We can recount, else they will be killed by this military administration. So this first stanza depicts a man named Akoni. The poem is very narrative, depicting in though poetic yet narrative the numerous time people like Fela Nicola Kokuti were arrested and put in jail. The likes of Wole Soyinka, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, they had to run away for their dear life. Human rights abuses and extreme power drunkenness of the military administration in Nigeria at that time. This Akoni, they got to his house, beat him soft like clay, and then they whisked him away with no one knowing where he was taken to. The second stanza still depicts another person named Danladi, who was dragged by these same people who, in our belief, Niyi Osundare is talking about the military, taken away and then away from his family, and no one knows where he is. We are told in the third stanza of a woman named Chinwe. Chinwe got to work one day only to find her sack letter. There was no warning, no following due process. She was just sacked, despite having a stainless record. It showed the high-handedness and the disregard for the rule of law that characterized the military rule in Nigeria. And that's why Niyi Osundare titles that collection The Song of the Season, painting very, very vividly the challenge that characterized this period, painting very vividly the problem of disregard for constitution, disregard for human rights that characterized the military government of that period. However, that is not my concentration in this edition. My concentration is on the title of the poem named Not My Business. Every stanza of that poem is followed by a refrain. The refrain says, "Not my business, as long as they do not take the yam from my savoring mouth." This is the response of the persona to every human rights abuses that he experiences around him. He sees Akoni being captured, beaten and taken away. His response is, "Not my business, as long as they don't take the yam away from my savoring mouth." Danladi is beaten, dragged away from his family, with no one knowing where he is taken to. Yet the response of the persona is, "It's none of my business, as long as it does not affect the food I'm eating. It does not affect my own family. They can take him to wherever they like." The next stanza talks about Chinwe, who loses her job despite not being warned, despite having a stainless record. The response of the persona again is, "It's not my business, as long as it doesn't affect me in any way." This is the major thing that Niyi Osundare tries to pass across in this poem. The indifferent attitude of people to the evil that is happening around them, the sense of unconcern and apathy that people show to problems that others face around them. And that's why we are in this edition, we are trying to unpack this concept of apathy. Martin Luther King Jr. once said that the ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and tyranny by bad people. It is the silence over that by the good people. Again, let me say it again. It says the ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and tyranny by bad people. It is the silence over that by good people. So, what is the ultimate tragedy? It's not that the military came in unannounced and carried Akoni away. The ultimate tragedy is not that Danladi his house is bashed into, his things are taken away, and is also kidnapped to an unknown destination. In fact, the ultimate tragedy is not that Chinwe loses her job despite her devotion and commitment to the work. According to Martin Luther King, the ultimate tragedy is the silence and the unconcerned attitude of the persona in this poem. He says, "Not my business, as long as they do not take the yam from my savoring mouth." So, this shows that tragedy continues. The perpetration of evil will continue in our society as long as we keep quiet. The question is, you and I, are we not like the persona in this poem, who sees his neighbor being captured and taken away and shows a sense of unconcern? Why? Because it does not affect him. Danladi is dragged away by unknown men, and he shows a sense or an attitude, an unconcerned attitude. Just because it does not affect the food he's eating or his own family, he closes his eyes to the evil. One thing we'll forget is that silence in the face of injustice is complicity with the oppressor. As long as we keep silent to the evil in our environment, we are complicit in this evil and we are encouraging it to continue. You will see in the poem that Akoni is captured, taken away, beaten, black and blue, and because the persona says it's not my business, these same people had the same effrontery to come back to pick another person. The person of the same response he had to Akoni's capture is the same response he has now to Danladi's capture. Not my business, as long as they do not take the yam from my savory mouth. Because that response was what he gave, the same thing was done or is done to Chinwe. She loses her job despite her commitment to the work. So we encourage evil. The evil that is in our society continues as long as we keep silent about it. But unfortunately for the persona, because he continued, he kept silent, that same evil that he kept watching and was showing an apathetic attitude towards, because it didn't happen to him, later happened to him at the end of the play of the poem, because we'll see at the last stanza of the poem, a jeep comes around and then carries him away to an unknown destination. We must know that what goes around comes around. The evil we don't confront today because it didn't come to us will end up coming to us one time or the other. Let's make a biblical reference to the story in Acts chapter 12 of when Herod picked James, one of the disciples, and then killed him. He saw the way the apostles and other Christians were silent about it, and he saw that the people loved the killing, and then he picked another person. So evil will continue as long as there is silence to it. In another way, I also want to see this poem as a way of correcting or conscientizing the African society. One thing African society is known for is a communal life. A life that is a society, this African society is concerned with its neighbor, is concerned with a brotherly concern, or we see ourselves as one. What affects my neighbor automatically affects me. We have in the African society a communal life. Historically, you will see that in the Yoruba tribe where I come from, when a woman has labor on the street, you will see women coming out from different houses just to help her. Or if a child is going through one challenge or the other, other women in the society will come up to assist. That is what the African society is known for. However, probably because of our gradual shift to a more Eurocentric mindset, we are beginning to jettison our communal life and adopt the European individualistic lifestyle, where all we think about is myself, my husband, and my child. Or probably it's as a result of modernity where we now have high and tall fences that separates us from our society, and makes us unconcerned and unconscious to the plight and the challenge of others. One thing Niyi Osundare is trying to reawaken and bring us back to our African communal lifestyle, where we are concerned about our neighbor, concerned about the plight of others, because like I said earlier, what goes around comes around. So we must bring back our African communal lifestyle and throw away this European and Eurocentric individualistic mindset, or what has come to us as a result of modernity, whereby we think alone about ourselves, about our immediate family, and throw away the concern and love for others. So I want to end this analysis by emphasizing that tyranny, oppression that we face in Africa will continue as long as some people are silent about it. We must come together to fight evil. All through history, slave trade did not stop until everybody was shouting about it and criticizing it. Racism did not stop until everyone began to sing, to shout, and chant against it. Same way, the corruption in the political, what Niyi Osundare was talking about at that time was military rule, which was the song of the season. Today, we are in a democratic dispensation, but this democratic dispensation is characterized by corruption and misrule. If we do not all come together to fight this evil, and some of us keep quiet because my child is also enjoying the benefits of this corrupt government, don't worry, what goes around comes around. Your party is there today, tomorrow, just like the persona who was quiet about the evil and the injustice meted at Akoni, Danladi, and Chinwe. He never knew that the same evil that he kept quiet about was still going to come around to him also. So the same way, you may be enjoying the trappings and the corruption because your party is there today. If you do not speak against this evil, one day you will also partake of it. Thank you for listening to this broadcast. Kindly click on the subscription button and also like this broadcast. Thank you and God bless.